This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Hot Takes, the show where I go through the comments that you guys leave underneath every video and react to as many comments as I can find the time for. So we're going to jump into it. The first comment is going to be from Pyro Gundam says this: I do feel this is going to be a sub 10 defense because of how much Miles caused havoc to the point the opposing offense had to have a second playbook just for him. Without him, the opposing offense doesn't need to worry anymore. So it's going to put a lot of pressure and spotlight on that defensive line as to what they can truly do without having one player having the whole attention of their offense. Look, it's going to be different without Miles. There's no doubt about that. And there's really no predicting how much losing a player like that can really impact a team, especially in sports. Like, I'm going to take you back all the way to, I remember when LeBron left Cleveland the first time. And I remember people around Cleveland thinking, like legitimately thinking, that Cavs team without LeBron was not as bad as everybody thought they were, and that they were going to surprise a lot of people and go 500 and maybe grab the 8th seed. Like, if you go back to the months after LeBron James had left, that was not an uncommon opinion. Matter of fact, that was the popular opinion in Cleveland. If you would have said what actually happened with Cleveland after LeBron left, which is that they would go immediately into being, number one pick overall contention, people would have cussed you out. You know what I mean? They would have told you don't know what you're talking about. Obviously, Miles is not LeBron in terms of football, but in terms of defense, he kind of has a LeBron-like impact. Now, I don't think that the supporting cast that he's had in Cleveland is as bad as like the supporting cast that LeBron had in Cleveland, but you just can't account for how much that's going to change things. Like, anybody confidently telling you that the defense is going to be one way, I don't know where that confidence really comes from. Like, I think you can be confident that it's not going to be as good as it was last year because the player swap that you're doing is just, you're taking a much better player and then swapping him out with the player who's not as good as him, still a really good player, but not as good as him. So, like, you can assume that it's going to get worse. I can understand where the confidence in that comes from, but the confidence that there's not going to be a significant fall off, I don't know. Like, I think that's more possible than I think people in Cleveland want to accept right now. And it does remind me a little bit of the confidence that people had in Cleveland after LeBron left, that, that Mo Williams led team was going to be like 500 when that team was terrible. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of my 2 cents on it. Like, I don't know if I'm with you that I think the Browns are going to be below a top 10 defense. I think they could still be a top 8 defense if things go right for them. Jared Verse plays well. Mason Graham takes a step. Mike Hall takes a step. Alex Wright takes a step. If those things happen, then I think the Browns could be a top 8 defense. But they need a lot more to go right for them to be that level of defense than what they needed before, which was if you just gave Miles a little help, you were going to be a top 8 defense automatically. And the question was, were you going to be top 8 that year or top 3? And usually that swung with the kind of production Miles was giving you, right? If Miles was playing at a defensive player of the year level, you'd be a top 3 defense. If Miles was playing at an all pro level, but not defensive player of the year level, then you'd probably be a top 8 defense, right? So not having that juggernaut in there, it's gonna be a big deal. And I do think there is a section of Browns fans who just are trying to hope their way out of any kind of realization that might be the case. But yeah, I think the Browns can be a top 8 defense this year. I'm not as low on it as you are, but I can certainly see how this can bounce the other way. And I think that's on the table for Cleveland, certainly this year. Especially, look, no defensive coordinator, like that might be an underrated factor in these things too. So yeah, it's certainly, I think I think we need to account for a wider range of outcome when it comes to this Browns defense. Sure, they could be a top 8 defense, and I think that they can realistically reach that level, but there's a lot below a top 8 defense that they can be, and I think we need to open ourselves to that possibility as well. Colonel says this: no pads, no pass rush, but I think I saw something, Fowler says. Hilarious word salad nonsense. Fowler was also on the Really Big Show today and said, I know I got my Browns rose-colored glasses on, but I'll stretch it to 7 wins. Journalists are trying to make a bad situation interesting for clicks. Wins are going to be hard to come by, and Haslam and Barry set this up for a better shot at a top quarterback in next year's draft. I don't think the Browns are tanking, man. Like, I realistically, if they were tanking, they wouldn't have wanted Jared Verse so badly back in that trade. You want Jared Verse in that trade because you still have goals to reach. This year, they brought in a lot of guys who are 28, 29 years old. That's not tanking. You know what I mean? You don't spend the amount of money that you spend on the offensive line if you're tanking. The Browns aren't trying to tank. I think they're trying to win games. They're realistic that they're not going to win a bunch of games this year, but I don't think they're trying to tank. You know what I mean? And as far as what Fowler says, it's like, okay, yeah, no pass rush, but I think I saw something. I mean, isn't that what we're all trying to see right now in OTAs? We know that there's no pass rush, or know that there's no pads, but if we like what Isaiah Bond is doing, we're pointing that out and understanding that that's there. Like, I think this is more about how you feel about the quarterback than what Fowler is actually saying. As far as predicting the Browns to win 7 games, I mean, given that they won 5 games last year, a +2 win total minus Myles Garrett, I think that would be a nice surprise for a lot of people, So I think you're being a little hard on Jeremy Fowler there, to be honest with you. I think you're taking out some other stuff on him. The next one comes from Jay Carr, who says this: they've been intentionally tanking. They still don't have a quarterback. Browns still tanking. I don't think people know what tanking is. I'm like starting to be convinced that tanking has just become one of those words that people just say, because I feel like what you're trying to say is that the Browns aren't going to be but so good this year, right? So the Browns aren't going to be a 10 or 11 win team. I feel like that's what you're trying to say. But that's not tanking. That's just you're not that good yet. Like, tanking is like you said, intentionally tanking. I don't know why you would have to add intentionally before tanking. You know what I mean? But tanking is intentional inherently. Tanking is like, we are getting rid of all of our best talent. We're not trying to replace that talent. We're not trying to fix anything. We are actively trying to be as bad as possible. They spent money on the offensive line. They attacked the wide receiver position in the draft. Yes, they traded Myles Garrett, but they did make sure they had a pivot point in that trade with Jared Verse. How does this look like a team that's trying to tank? Like, do we not know? Like, some of y'all must have not have lived through when the Browns were actually tanking, because you would know the difference, right? When the Browns were actually tanking, we were like actively encouraging Joe Hayden to sign other places, right? We were actively getting rid of players who could have helped us because we wanted to lose, right? We had Brock Osweiler win a quarterback competition, and then we released him the week before the season started so we can play a rookie. That's tanking, right? What the Browns are doing right now, the fact that they're even entertaining Deshaun Watson in this quarterback competition tells you that they're not tanking. They want to win games. They're pretty adamant on it. They just fired a coach for not winning enough games. What about this team is tanking? If you don't think they're going to be good, just say, I don't think they're that good. But what does that have to do with tanking? It's one of those words where we've lost the plot completely. And I could tell we've lost the plot because you're saying intentionally tanking. Has a team ever accidentally tanked? You can't accidentally tank, right? You can be bad. You can be really good. You can try to be bad but be good by accident. But you can't unintentionally tank. You can just be shitty. It's just one of those words that I feel like people just lost sight of. Cottonwood Slim says, I'm usually the ultimate optimist, but I take the under on the 6.5. I don't think the Browns defense will be top 10. The offensive line will take a while to gel, maybe 4 to 6 games. I expect a big improvement for wide receivers and a better run game, but the offensive improvement will depend on quarterback to be able to keep healthy and upright and hit the improved wide receivers. So I disagree with you, but I understand where you're coming from. You know what I mean? Ultimately, like I could get how you could feel the defense won't be top 10 again. I do think I agree with you on the offensive line point that it will take a while to gel. As far as like the improvement from wide receivers and the better run game, I think we disagree on the impact that having better wide receiving options and having a better run game will have on making bad quarterbacks be able to be upright. You know what I mean? Like the lowering the floor on what quarterbacks can do, how much a run game can improve that. That's why I think I'm a little higher on them, and I think they can actually hit the over here than you are. Before they traded Miles, I thought they definitely would hit the over. After trading Miles, I'm more uncertain about it. But yeah, I think that they can. I think that the improvement in the run game will make a bigger difference than people are anticipating, because we're so quarterback centric that it's hard for us to imagine a team being decent without decent quarterback play. But it happens every year. You know, a great run game can really, like, I think the Vikings went 9-8 this year and they had absolute shit quarterback play the whole time. I like keep that in mind. You know what I mean? Now, is our defense going to be able to get to that same level the Vikings were at? We got to see. We got a lot of questions defensively that, you know, I'm hoping they'll be able to answer positively because it is such a good roster, but you never know. Dahmer Clone says this: one thing to note, if the offense can make a solid jump in performance, the field position and time of possession will greatly help the defense. There's a chance if the offense efficiently improves to even like mentioned, it'll benefit the defense, even with the big loss of 95. Jared Verse and the offense, not guaranteed, could be roughly the same. Still not a huge fan of the trade. Yeah, I think that's maybe the argument internally that the Browns have for this trade, to be able to justify it. I think you're putting yourself in a position where you need a lot of things to go right in order to put yourself in that spot that we're talking about, right? Like it's going to take a lot of different things that go the way that the Browns want them to go in order to get there. But certainly, you know, if the offense is not putting the defense in danger as much, then I think that that's something that could happen. My take on it is this, though. While I do think the offense is going to be better, I don't know if we're going to keep putting the defense in better situations. Like, I don't know if that translates, because I do think that they're going to throw the ball more. I do think they're going to throw more interceptions than they did last year. You got to remember, like, as much as that team was terrible throwing the ball last year, they didn't really throw that many interceptions. I think they will turn the ball over a little bit more this year. You know, I think that they're still going to have to punt and 3 and out a significant amount of time. I just don't know if it's going to make a big enough difference to the Browns' average starting field position for their defense. I think it's possible that the offense can get better, but still put the defense in shit situations. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's kind of how I feel about it. We're going to continue with hot takes, but first I got to thank my sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is a fun way to earn cash while you watch your favorite teams. No complex betting rules. Just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Here are my picks for this upcoming season, AFC North edition. Jimmy Bernard, I have less than 475. This has to do with volume available in Pittsburgh's offense. Quincy Judkins, I have over 975. Browns improved line. I think the run game's going to be better with it. Chase Brown, under 900 yards. Joe Burrow equals less rushing yards usually for the Bengals offense. Mark Andrews, more than 400 475 yards, Lamar's going to need a safety blanket. Check to see if PrizePicks is available in your state. You could follow me on the app at Quinn_C to see all my lineups. Download the PrizePicks app today. Play $5 and get $50 in lineup to download the app using the link in the description. All right, we're back. Lincoln Adams says this: the idea that the NFL can suspend you for not breaking a rule while under contract with them is absurd to me. Let him earn his suspension while screwing up under contract. I don't know why people think this is absurd. I mean, this kind of thing happens in real life all the time, right? Like, you cannot be admitted to a university, do something that's against their student code of conduct, and be banned from that university just in case you might ever want to go there, right? Like, you can be, this concept is not a foreign concept, is basically what I'm saying. And what the NFL is also doing is they're not allowing their league to become an asylum from the NCAA's rules. And if you're the NFL, that makes a lot of sense because you have to work closely with the NCAA. And if you become an asylum for players against their rules, then you don't get to work closely with the NCAA. You become an enemy of the NCAA. So yeah, this makes sense. And honestly, if we're talking like if this in a just world, right? If all of the suspensions that the NCAA handed out made sense, nobody's really complaining about this rule, right? Honestly, the only time people really complained about this precedent that the NFL set, where it's like, hey, if the NCAA suspends you, we're likely to suspend you too. The only time where people really cared about that is when the NCAA was suspending people for dumb shit, right? For, small things like selling memorabilia or tattoo gate or whatever it was, improper benefits. That's when people in the NFL that's when people thought that rule was ridiculous by the NFL. But if the NFL is just upholding a gambling suspension on a player, are we really going to be mad about that? Are we going to say, hey, look, I know this guy didn't get punished at his last institution, but showed a history of doing this thing that he's not allowed to do in the NFL, but we're just going to let him do it until he gets caught in the NFL and then wait to suspend him till then? That makes no sense. Or let's say somebody gets suspended by their school because they get in a domestic assault situation. Should they be able to go pro and avoid suspension for that domestic assault situation just because they weren't under NFL contract? That makes no sense. So, yeah, I don't mind the NFL's rule here because now we're in a place where the NCAA doesn't really have the power to suspend you over dumb shit anymore. They can only really suspend you over big violations. And now that that's the case, yeah, you should probably uphold those kind of suspensions, especially if those suspensions, everybody agrees, are just, which in the Brendan Sorsby case, which is what we're talking about, there's not a person in the world that doesn't think that Brendan Sorsby should be suspended. You know what I mean? Like, other than Brendan Sorsby's family, and maybe even some of those people think he need to be suspended. You know what I mean? So I don't get the problem with that. I thought it was much worse the way that they used the rule 10 years ago. Now, with how things are, it makes sense to me. It doesn't really bother me. Next hot take comes from World War Z, who says this. He's talking about Brendan Sorsby. Started twice as many games as Ty, stronger arm, better physical traits. Had he been in the 2026 draft, he probably would have gone in the first round. Guy obviously has a gambling problem. Someone is going to risk the second round pick on Sorsby. Too many teams need a quarterback. Even Indy might be interested. Someone is going to try. Now, if somehow he slides to the third round, several teams will try to get him. Well, that's the thing, though. That's not how the supplemental draft works. It's not like the regular draft where you are informed if a player slides past a certain round. It's a blind bidding process. So everybody submits their bid at the same time. So you don't get to be like, oh, well, nobody bid on him in the first 3 rounds. So I'm going to go take him. It's like whoever had the highest bid for him is the team that gets him. And everybody submits their bid at the same time. So if the highest someone wants to bid on him is a 3rd round pick that would have been deemed at the front of the draft order this year, then that's what would get him. So that's not how it works. And I don't think that Brendan Sorsby would have been a first round pick this year. There were some questions with his tape. His tape wasn't as good as Ty Simpson. Certainly better traits, certainly better athlete, physical traits than Ty Simpson. But the tape wasn't really there. Maybe if he had played the way he did the first 8 weeks, the last 4 weeks of the season, I think you might have more of an argument. Will somebody risk a second round pick? I think that's a little bit more realistic than a first round pick. I don't think he wasn't getting a first round pick in the draft this year. He's not going to get a first round pick in the supplemental. The NFL committee gave him a third round grade, right? The committee of scouts that tell players to stay in or not, they gave him a third round grade. So second round, maybe. I think the teams that are most likely to value Brendan Sorsby are teams with older quarterbacks who are really good, right? So Dallas might be an interesting team to think about going after Brendan Sorsby, because you could say to yourself, hey, we could develop him while Dak finishes out his career, get him through his gambling issues, and then see what's there, right? I think he makes a lot more sense to teams who have an established but aging quarterback. I don't know if that's the kind of guy you want to throw in to a pressure cooker where you're taking him with a second round pick and asking him to save your franchise at the quarterback position. That doesn't feel like a wise play to me. So I would say that about him. Let's go to Basher. He says, I think we, by the grace of failure, we're due to get a great quarterback in 27. We're looking at 28 and 29 before we can make deep playoff runs. Sorsby is Johnny Football kind of pick. No thanks. I don't think Sorsby's anything like Johnny Football. I feel like that's unfair. Johnny was undersized. He didn't play football properly. He didn't know how to read a field, and he was lazy. I don't think Brendan Sorsby's lazy. I don't think he's that level of immature. I feel like we're doing a lot. Like, yeah, I think Sorsby has become like I think he's starting to become overhated, where it's like he's become the target of people to kind of get their shit off about how they feel about certain things. And now people are just associating him with all kind of stuff. You know, like I've seen people defend the character of people who were accused or proven to do crimes that were much more heinous than anything that Brendan Sorsby had. Like you would have thought that Brendan Sorsby tried to like burn down an orphanage the way that people talk about him. I think it's getting a little out of hand. Comparing him to Johnny Football, correct me if I'm wrong, at the very least was actively doing cocaine during football games. Like, is Brendan Sorsby accused of anything like that? Like, what? We got to calm down a little bit. Like, the pitchforks have come out. People are in their hate mob. So we're just like elevating everything that Brendan Sorsby has done. But the reality is what he did was not good. He gambled far too much for an athlete to gamble. But like, we out here trying to act like he burnt down an orphanage right now. You know what I mean? We're trying to call him the worst person, and he's a terrible human and all this shit. He's going to destroy the locker room. I'm like, where's the evidence of any of this? Like, y'all are adding a lot of shit here just because of this one story and this one character flaw that he has, when like actively ignoring the fact that like there are people on the Browns they've been accused and convicted of worse things than what it is that Sorsby has on a character level. You want to make the argument that it's not good for the integrity of the game? Obviously. But character-wise, I think people are going a bit far here. Obviously, there's stuff that he needs to work on, but the way that people are acting like he's irredeemable, I think is ridiculous. Especially when this is like mostly stuff he was doing when he was 18. Like, the most serious violation here is the betting on Indiana when he was a redshirt freshman. That's stuff that he did while he was 18. Yeah, I don't know. I found this whole Brendan Sorsby conversation to be kind of frustrating because there's just such a lack of thinking that people are exhibiting in this situation. Like either people are all the way on one side with it or all the way on the other, right? When we talk about his value, there are people who are like, he's undraftable, you can't touch him, or he's worth a first round pick. It's just the extremes of it is just ridiculous. When we talk about his character, there are people who think that he is the worst person ever. He's going to be a locker room malcontent. He's going to be a complete terrible human being because he got in this trouble. And the most serious part of that trouble is when he was 18, versus other people who don't think it's a problem at all that he was gambling on his own team when he was in Indiana. Like, we got to be able to find common sense ground here, right? Like, it does matter that he gambled on his own team. It's not a good thing. And it does say something about what his character was when he made those bets on his own team. But it also is something that he did when he was 18 years old. And it doesn't mean that he's a complete piece of shit because he's done it. Like, I've heard people say things about Brendan Sorsby's character that I think are just quite over the top, especially when you consider the amount of people in the NFL who have been convicted of crimes that actually produced legitimate trauma to the people that they did those crimes to, right? And we're putting Brendan Sorsby almost on a higher level than some of those people. And when you look at his crime, is it something that can infect damage to the integrity of the NFL as a league? Sure. But like, has he done anything that actually inflicted trauma to anybody else? He's a gambler. He has a gambling problem. But that doesn't make you a piece of shit. And honestly, treating people like that doesn't help them fix their problem. He didn't rob anybody to gamble. He didn't do anything that would inflict trauma to anybody else to get this money. If that comes out and he did something like that, then obviously he deserves all the punishment that he should get. But at the end of the day, we're just talking about somebody who used money that they had to gamble. And it was inappropriate for the position that they held at the university. He's not been accused of fixing games. He's not been accused of doing anything intentional to win any of these bets. He's just accused of gambling. And people are calling him a piece of shit. I don't get it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know who Brendan Sorsby is as a person. I don't know what his teammates feel about him or whatever it is. But I feel like people are just so dead set in using him to win or prove an argument in one way that, like, any nuance of him as a human being is just completely lost in this situation as people use him to argue about things that are much bigger than his individual situation. That's my 2 cents on it. Let me know what you guys think. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.